you're living in the wrong timeline. Every history book you've ever read is missing the battles that actually shaped your reality.
You're living in the wrong timeline. Every history book you've ever read is missing the battles that actually shaped your reality. Not Waterloo, not Gettysburg. The real turning points of human civilization were erased, buried, or disguised as minor skirmishes. 5 battles you've never heard of determined whether you'd be speaking Latin, praying to forgotten gods, or living under technologies we can't even imagine. What if I told you that a single arrow in 1241 prevented humanity from becoming a spacefaring civilization 500 years ago? This is the untold story of the timeline battles. Conflicts so pivotal that losing them would have created an unrecognizable world. What makes a battle change history? How can 30 minutes of combat erase entire civilizations from existence? Is it possible that some battles were deliberately hidden because they revealed truths about human nature or human origins that we weren't meant to know? Tonight we expose the 5 deleted battles that created your reality. In 1923, a Russian archaeologist named Viktor Sarianidi was excavating in the Gobi Desert when he made a discovery that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Beneath layers of sand, he found evidence of a massive battlefield, but the weapons didn't match any known civilization. The metal alloys were impossible for the supposed time period. The tactical formations suggested advanced mathematical knowledge that shouldn't have existed. Sarianidi's journals, hidden in Soviet archives for 70 years, contained a single chilling line. They fought here to prevent something, and they lost. The academic world dismissed him as delusional. His funding was cut, his reputation destroyed, but Sarianidi had stumbled upon the first evidence of what historians now whisper about in closed conferences: the timeline battles. The timeline battles weren't just military conflicts. They were nexus points where the entire trajectory of human development balanced on a knife's edge. Ancient texts from Sumeria to the Vedas speak of wars between futures. Battles where the victor didn't just win territory, but won the right to shape reality itself. Consider this. Why do so many ancient cultures have legends of gods fighting in the sky? Why do battlefield sites around the world show evidence of heat damage that primitive weapons couldn't cause? And why do certain battles seem to defy the laws of military probability? The answer lies in 5 specific conflicts, 5 moments when history could have forked in radically different directions. And in each case, the side that should have lost didn't. Battle 1. The Mongolian Anomaly, 1241 AD. In 1241, the Mongol Empire stood at the gates of Europe. They had crushed every army from China to Poland. Their mounted archers were unstoppable. Europe's knights were children playing with toys compared to the Mongol war machine. Historical models show a 97% probability that the Mongols would conquer all of Europe within 18 months. Then came the Battle of Mohi in Hungary, and something impossible happened. According to official history, the Mongols won at Mohi. They destroyed the Hungarian army, but then inexplicably they retreated. Historians claim it was because their great Khan died, but the timeline doesn't match. The Khan died months after the retreat began. Recently declassified Vatican documents reveal something extraordinary. Priests reported fire from heaven striking Mongol camps. Soldiers spoke of armored figures that moved without walking, appearing on the battlefield. One account describes a Mongol general screaming about the Watchers before ordering a full retreat. Soil samples from Mohi show isotopes that shouldn't exist. Naturally, Mongol records from this period are mysteriously missing, the only gap in their otherwise meticulous history. European weapons recovered from the battle show microscopic alterations. To their metal structure, local legends speak of angels with burning swords for centuries after what stopped the Mongols wasn't military might. It was something else, something that wanted European civilization to develop along a specific path. Battle 2. The Carthaginian Paradox, 216 BC. The Battle of Cannae should have ended Rome. Hannibal had just executed the most perfect tactical maneuver in military history. 80,000 Romans lay dead. The road to Rome was open. Every military strategist who studied Cannae agrees. Rome should have fallen within weeks. But Hannibal didn't march on Rome. The man who crossed the Alps with elephants, who never lost a battle, suddenly hesitated. Carthaginian texts, long thought destroyed, were partially recovered from Egyptian merchants' records. They speak of Hannibal receiving visitors in the night after Cannae. These visitors showed him the future of 2 paths, one where Carthage ruled and one where Rome ruled. The texts claim Hannibal saw something in the Carthaginian future that terrified him more than death. He saw a world where Carthaginian child sacrifice evolved into something far worse, where their maritime empire would discover the Deep Ones and make a pact that would doom humanity. Archaeological evidence supports something strange. Hannibal's camp shows signs of non-military construction after Cannae, circular patterns that match no known. Carthaginian architecture Roman accounts mention lights in the sky. During this period, Carthaginian coins minted after Cannae show symbolic changes, adding stellar patterns that appear in no other period. Hannibal chose to let Rome survive, but was it really his choice? Battle 3. The Byzantine Blackout, 626 AD, Constantinople, 626 AD. The Byzantine Empire faced complete annihilation. Avars, Slavs, and Persians, a combined force of 200,000, surrounded the city. The Byzantines had fewer than 15,000 defenders. Naval blockade made escape impossible. Military historians calculate the city should have fallen in 3 days. It held for 2 months. Then something happened that chroniclers could barely describe. Every account agrees on certain details. A massive storm appeared from nowhere, destroying the enemy fleet. Defenders reported their weapons becoming blessed. Arrows that shouldn't hit their targets somehow did. Attackers fled, claiming they saw giants on the walls. The siege ended not with negotiation, but with the entire enemy army running in terror. But it's what happened after that changes everything. Byzantine records from the next 50 years show technological advances that make no sense. Architectural techniques that wouldn't be rediscovered for 800 years. Medical knowledge that appears and then vanishes. The empire that should have died became a beacon of preserved knowledge, almost as if something needed that knowledge protected until Europe was ready to receive it during the Renaissance. Battle 4. The Teutoburg Deletion, 9 AD. In 9 AD, 3 entire Roman legions, 20,000 of the most disciplined soldiers in history, marched into the Teutoburg forest. They were ambushed by Germanic tribes and destroyed. This stopped Roman expansion into northern Europe forever. But here's what doesn't add up. Roman legions didn't just disappear. They were too well trained, too organized. Even in defeat, survivors always returned. Messages always got through. But from Teutoburg, nothing. 20,000 men vanished like smoke. When archaeologists finally found the Teutoburg battlefield in 1987, they discovered weapons melted in patterns that suggest heat far beyond what ancient forges could produce. Skeletal remains showing cellular damage, consistent with radiation exposure. Roman armor fused to Germanic shields metallurgically, impossible with the technology of the time. Soil magnetism that still affects compass. Readings today, Germanic oral traditions recorded centuries later, speak of the day the gods fought alongside us. They describe weapons that sang death and warriors who walked through metal. One recurring detail: the forest itself seemed to come alive and consume the Romans. What if Teutoburg wasn't just a battle but a temporal firewall, something ensuring that Germanic tribes remained independent, preserving genetic and cultural diversity that would prove crucial 1,500 years later? Battle 5. The Japanese Divine Wind, 1274 and 1281 AD. Twice the Mongol Empire tried to invade Japan. Twice they assembled the largest naval invasions in history up to that point. Twice they were destroyed by perfectly timed typhoons, the famous kamikaze or divine wind. Meteorologists studying historical weather patterns have reached a disturbing conclusion. The probability of 2 such storms hitting at exactly the right moment is 1 in 14 million. But the storms are only part of the story. Japanese accounts describe samurai weapons suddenly able to cut through Mongol armor, like silk. Mongol soldiers fleeing from invisible enemies, ships sinking in calm water before the storms. Hit mass hallucinations among invasion forces of demon faces in the waves. Recently discovered Chinese records add another layer. Mongol shamans warned against the invasion, claiming they sensed guardians of the island nation. Kublai Khan executed these shamans, but their prophecies proved accurate. The land of the rising sun is protected by forces that predate human memory. What was being protected? Japan's isolation would preserve unique genetic markers, cultural practices, and technological developments that would prove pivotal in the 20th century. Without Japan's independence, no Meiji Restoration, no rapid industrialization, no technological innovation that would change the world. These 5 battles share disturbing commonalities: probability, defiance. Each had a 90% plus chance of going the other way based on military analysis, anomalous evidence, physical traces that shouldn't exist with period technology witness accounts, consistent reports of supernatural intervention across cultures, historical impact. Each preserved a specific cultural, genetic, technological line that proved crucial. Later information gaps. Unusual absence of records from the winning side immediately after Dr. Sarah Chen, a materials scientist studying ancient battlefields, made a shocking discovery in 2019. Soil. Samples from all 5 sites contain the same microscopic crystalline structures, formations that only occur under extreme electromagnetic conditions. It's as if each battlefield was exposed to directed energy weapons, she reported, before her funding was mysteriously cut. Population geneticist Dr. Yuki Tanaka found something even more disturbing. Descendants from regions affected by these battles show specific genetic markers, dormant DNA sequences that activate under certain conditions. These markers appear nowhere else in the human genome. It's almost like these battles were fought to preserve certain genetic lines, Tanaka noted. Lines that carry information we don't yet understand. Of course, mainstream historians reject these connections entirely. Professor David Whitmore of Oxford dismisses it as pattern-seeking in random events. Battles are chaotic, he argues. Unexpected outcomes happen. Weather changes. Leaders make mistakes. To suggest some kind of intervention is to abandon rational historical analysis. The scientific community is equally skeptical. The unusual soil compositions, natural geological phenomena, the genetic markers, coincidental mutations, the technological anomalies, misidentified or misdated artifacts. They point out that humans have always sought supernatural explanations for military victories and defeats. The Greeks credited gods. The Romans read omens. Medieval armies carried holy relics. Why should these battles be different? But critics can't explain why these specific battles, out of thousands throughout history, show such consistent anomalies. They can't explain why cultures separated by continents and centuries describe identical phenomena. They can't explain the mathematical impossibility of these outcomes aligning so perfectly with humanity's technological development. Dr. Chen, before her research was shut down, made one final observation. The electromagnetic signatures at these sites aren't random. They form a pattern that looks artificially created, deliberately placed. And then there's the most unsettling evidence of all, the prophecies. Ancient Sumerian texts speak of the Neteru, beings who shepherd the timeline. Hindu scriptures describe the Kalpa Vikalpana, entities that ensure history unfolds according to cosmic law. Even the Bible mentions watchers, angels assigned to guide human development. What if these aren't myths? Quantum physicists have theorized that time isn't linear but crystalline, with multiple possible timelines branching at key decision points. Some researchers suggest consciousness itself can influence which timeline becomes real. Dr. Michael Reeves, a quantum historian, yes, that's now a field, proposes something radical. What if humanity is being cultivated? What if certain genetic lines, certain technologies, certain cultural developments are being protected because they're necessary for some future event? This is where it gets uncomfortable. The genetic markers Tanaka found? They're not entirely human. They contain sequences that don't match any terrestrial DNA. The implications are staggering. Were these battles fought to preserve human hybrid bloodlines? Are we being guided toward a specific evolutionary outcome? Is human history a managed experiment? Ancient astronaut theorists have long suggested humanity was genetically modified by extraterrestrial visitors. But what if the modification is ongoing? What if these battles were fought to ensure certain genetic combinations survive to the present day? The evidence becomes overwhelming when we examine global myths. The Mahabharata. This Hindu epic describes a war where celestial weapons were used, where time itself could be manipulated, where the gods chose sides. Scholars date it to around 3000 BC, but it describes technologies we're only now developing. The Book of Enoch, removed from the Bible, this text explicitly describes watchers intervening in human affairs, teaching forbidden knowledge, and fighting wars over humanity's future. It mentions battles in the heavens that determined earthly outcomes. Norse Ragnarok, the Norse end times prophecy, isn't just about destruction. It's about a battle between timelines, where the gods fight to preserve one specific future while preventing another. Hopi prophecies, Native American Hopi, speak of the true white brother who will return when humanity reaches a crossroads. They describe previous worlds destroyed when humanity took the wrong path. Were the timeline battles preventing another reset? Every major culture has myths of divine intervention in crucial battles. What if they're all describing the same phenomenon from different perspectives? But why? Why intervene in these specific battles? The answer might lie in what almost happened: the timelines that were prevented. The Mongol timeline had the Mongols conquered Europe in 1241. Their shamanic practices would have merged with European alchemy. Recently decoded Mongolian texts suggest they were close to discovering what they called the soul of metal, possibly early nuclear theory. A Mongol-dominated world might have achieved atomic weapons by 1500. The Carthaginian timeline, Carthaginian child sacrifice, wasn't just religious, it was experimental. Recovered texts hint at attempts to feed the deep gods and gain otherworldly knowledge. A Carthage-dominated Mediterranean might have opened doorways better left closed. The Roman timeline. If Rome had expanded into northern Europe in 9 AD, Germanic tribes would have been absorbed. The genetic diversity that later produced key scientific minds, from Kepler to Einstein, would have been diluted. The Renaissance might never have happened. The Byzantine timeline. Without Byzantine preservation of classical knowledge, the Dark Ages would have been darker. Islamic Golden Age science would have had no Greek texts to build upon. Mathematics, medicine, and astronomy would be centuries behind. The Japanese timeline, a Mongol conquered Japan, would have created a unified Asian empire from Poland to the Pacific. Cultural homogenization would have eliminated the unique perspectives that drove 20th century innovation. Each prevented timeline leads to the same outcome: technological stagnation or premature discovery of dangerous knowledge. It's as if something is managing our development speed. Not too fast, not too slow. Modern science offers explanations for everything. The electromagnetic anomalies, natural mineral deposits, the genetic markers, founder effects from population bottlenecks, the weather patterns, coincidental but not impossible, the witness accounts, mass hysteria, and mythologization. Dr. Richard Hayes from MIT's Department of Military History states, "Humans need to believe their victories are divinely ordained. It's psychological comfort food. These battles succeeded due to tactics, terrain, and timing, nothing more." Geologists explain the soil anomalies as volcanic activity or meteor impacts. Geneticists insist the DNA sequences are within normal variation ranges. Historians point to the human tendency to create patterns where none exist. Case closed? Not quite. What if the truth is somewhere between divine intervention and pure coincidence? Princeton's Global Consciousness Project has documented that human consciousness can influence random number generators during major world events. What if, at crucial historical moments, collective human will can actually alter probability? Perhaps these battles were won not by external intervention, but by the focused intention of millions of future humans whose existence depended on the outcome. Time reversed causality, our existence reaching back to ensure itself.